She wore a name tag that wasn't hers, and in one careless moment, the entire room decided she was the billionaire's wife. Instead of correcting them, he smiled, took her hand, and chose to play along, never knowing that this single lie would rewrite both their hearts forever. She never planned to be noticed that night. The borrowed blazer felt slightly too big on her shoulders, and the name tag clipped to her chest was something she barely glanced at before walking inside. It was supposed to be simple: attend, deliver documents, leave quietly. But one careless detail, one wrong name printed in bold letters, shifted the air around her the moment she stepped into the hall. Conversations slowed, eyes followed, smiles appeared that were never meant for her. She felt it before she understood it, the sudden weight of attention pressing against her skin. People greeted her with respect she had never known, their voices softer, their gestures careful. Someone congratulated her. Someone else asked about her husband's latest venture. Confusion tangled with fear, her pulse racing as she realized the truth too late. They didn't see her. They saw a name, a title, a woman they believed belonged beside one of the most powerful men in the room. Her instinct was to correct them, to laugh it off, to escape before the mistake grew larger. But then he appeared, the billionaire himself, calm amid the chaos, his presence commanding without effort. His gaze met hers, sharp and observant, instantly understanding what had happened. She expected annoyance, maybe embarrassment, maybe a public correction that would shrink her back into invisibility. Instead, there was a pause, just long enough to feel dangerous. In that pause, something unspoken passed between them. A shared awareness, a choice. He smiled, not the polite smile he gave others, but something warmer, almost curious. He stepped closer, close enough that she could hear his breath, and offered his arm as if it were the most natural thing in the world. The room accepted it without question. So did fate. Her heart pounded as she took his arm, every nerve alive, every thought screaming that this was wrong. Yet beneath the fear was something else, something unfamiliar and thrilling. For the first time, someone powerful chose to stand beside her, not because of who she was supposed to be, but because of a moment only they understood. The mistake no longer felt like an accident. It felt like a spark, igniting something neither of them had been searching for, something born from a single wrong name and a choice to let it remain uncorrected. The lie settled between them quietly, almost gently, like a secret wrapped in silk. To everyone else, it was effortless, the way he introduced her, the way she smiled beside him, the way their hands found each other with practiced ease. But beneath the polished surface, they were two strangers bound by something fragile, something that could shatter if spoken aloud. Every step they took together was balanced on trust they hadn't earned yet somehow instinctively gave. They learned to communicate without words. A glance that asked, "Are you all right?" A subtle squeeze of fingers that meant, "Stay." She followed his lead through conversations filled with wealth and power, and he slowed his pace to match her uncertainty. What began as survival turned into rhythm, their movements aligning as if rehearsed long before that night. The lie demanded closeness, and closeness invited emotion neither of them were prepared for. In quiet moments, away from the crowd, the mask softened. He asked her simple questions: where she was from, what she loved, what made her laugh. Not the questions he asked investors or executives, but the kind meant to uncover a person. She answered carefully at first, afraid that honesty might betray them, yet drawn to the gentleness in his voice. She noticed how his confidence faded when no one was watching, how his shoulders carried more weight than his wealth suggested. She became aware of the way he listened, truly listened, as if her words mattered more than the illusion surrounding them. He noticed the way she hesitated before speaking, the way her eyes searched for reassurance. In pretending to be something they weren't, they revealed parts of themselves they rarely shared with anyone. The lie gave them permission to be close without expectations, to exist in a space where no one demanded explanations. But with every shared smile, the line blurred. The lie stopped feeling temporary and began to feel dangerous. She wondered if he saw her or the role she played. He wondered if her laughter was meant for him or for the world watching. Each moment deepened the connection while tightening the knot of fear, because the closer they grew, the more it hurt to imagine the truth pulling them apart, leaving behind only the memory of what almost became real. What began as an act slowly transformed into something neither of them could control. The public spaces where they were expected to shine became the backdrop for emotions they never intended to feel. Standing side by side, they played their roles flawlessly, yet beneath the practiced smiles, their hearts moved closer with every passing moment. The lie demanded intimacy, and intimacy quietly rewrote the rules between them. Their hands touched more often, no longer out of necessity but instinct. A gentle brush of fingers while walking, a protective hand at her waist in crowded rooms, his thumb tracing slow, absent circles as if reassuring himself she was still there. Each small gesture carried warmth, grounding her in a world that once felt overwhelming. She found herself leaning into him without thinking, trusting his presence the way one trusts a familiar melody. In private conversations, the walls fell faster than either expected. He spoke of exhaustion disguised as ambition, of nights spent surrounded by people yet feeling unseen. She shared dreams she had never spoken aloud, fears she had learned to hide behind quiet resilience. They listened without judgment, without the power imbalance the world assumed between them. In those moments, wealth and status dissolved, leaving only two souls recognizing something familiar in each other. She began to notice the way his voice softened when he said her name, even though it wasn't the one on the tag. He noticed how her laughter reached her eyes when she forgot to pretend. The room could be filled with applause, yet the only approval that mattered came from the person standing beside them. Their closeness became a refuge, a place where neither had to perform, even though the world believed they were acting. Time seemed to fold inward around them. Minutes stretched into meaningful silences, and glances held stories words couldn't carry. The lie that once felt heavy now felt like the thread stitching their lives together, binding them through moments too tender to deny. Yet with every heartbeat, the truth loomed closer, casting shadows over their growing attachment, because love born in secrecy carries both warmth and the quiet ache of knowing it cannot stay hidden forever. Every stolen moment carried with it a tension that neither of them could ignore. The more time they spent together, the more impossible it became to separate truth from pretense. She felt it in the way her heart skipped when he entered a room, in the way her thoughts lingered on him long after they parted. He felt it in the silent expectation in her eyes, in the way he found himself imagining a future where their shared lie became something real. Between them, desire and fear danced, tangled together in a rhythm neither could control. She questioned herself constantly. Was it love, or was it just the thrill of being mistaken for someone she was not? Every laugh, every touch, every moment of closeness made the line blur, until it was impossible to tell where performance ended and genuine emotion began. The world assumed she had everything she needed because she stood beside him, but inside, she wrestled with doubt, wondering if he truly saw her or only the role she played. He carried his own battle in silence. He had always been in control, always measured, always precise, yet she had unsettled him in ways no wealth, no power, no expectation ever had. He found himself drawn to her unpredictability, to her honesty hidden behind careful words, to the warmth she radiated that could pierce the coldest of rooms. He wanted to reach out, to claim more than a fleeting touch or a whispered glance, but the fear of breaking the delicate balance kept him restrained. Their interactions became a careful choreography of longing and restraint. Every shared joke carried weight, every accidental brush of skin sent tremors through their carefully constructed facades. In crowded rooms, he caught himself watching her, noticing how she laughed without realizing, how she tilted her head when curious, how her eyes sparkled in ways no title could create. And she, in turn, found herself seeking the moments when he leaned close, when he offered a private smile, when the world fell away and it was just the two of them, connected by something deeper than circumstance. The internal struggle was constant. Love felt forbidden yet irresistible. Every day, the truth threatened to unravel the delicate connection they had built, yet neither could resist the magnetic pull that drew them closer. Every conversation, every glance, every heartbeat carried the unspoken question: could something born in deception survive when faced with reality, or would the revelation of truth shatter the fragile world they had begun to create together? The moment the truth edged closer, the tension between them became almost unbearable. They had spent weeks, maybe months, living in a world carefully constructed from half-truths and borrowed identities, a world where smiles were both armor and invitation. Each laugh, each brush of fingers, each lingering glance had deepened a connection neither of them had anticipated, and now the knowledge that the lie could be exposed at any second cast a shadow over every heartbeat. She felt the weight of it first, the gnawing fear that the fantasy they had created might collapse, leaving her exposed and alone. He felt it too, though in a different way. He had allowed himself to become vulnerable, to care for someone in a space where care was meant to be impossible. The public saw a perfect couple, flawless and untouchable, but behind closed doors, he wrestled with emotions that were raw, unguarded, and terrifyingly real. The lie had been simple at first, a small act to avoid embarrassment, but in its wake, it had created a bond that neither of them could ignore. Every interaction now carried double weight. A smile was not just pleasant, it was a question, a test, a promise. A touch was not just accidental, it was deliberate, a claim on something that neither wanted to lose. She noticed the subtle ways he tried to reassure her, the slight pauses in conversation, the intensity in his gaze when he lingered a second too long. He noticed her hesitation, the way she lingered near him, the way her laughter softened when he joined in, the way her eyes searched for meaning behind his words. Fear and longing intertwined. She wanted to run from the lie, to escape before her heart became too entangled. Yet every time she considered stepping away, she found herself drawn back, pulled by an invisible thread that neither could name. He wanted to protect her from the world's judgment, from the consequences of their shared secret, but he also wanted to hold her close, to savor every stolen moment before reality demanded its due. They both knew the truth could not stay buried forever. The lie had brought them together, yet it threatened to undo everything it had created. And yet, in the quiet pauses between public appearances, in the secret smiles shared when no one else was watching, they discovered something undeniable, something far more profound than a borrowed name or a mistaken identity. The lie had been the spark, but it was the unspoken moments, the whispered conversations, and the stolen glances that had ignited a fire neither could ignore.